So most people don't even realize that our thoughts are a choice.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that right there, having that information, you mean I can choose my thoughts? And then the other part is that a lot of people assume that their thoughts are who they are. And that's also separate. So your thoughts are more like a narration. And we have almost autopilot narration going on from years of beating ourselves up or years of certain self-talk or years of belief. We can still hear that parent that was cruel or the teacher that was mean or the bully in the schoolyard. And so those thoughts kind of go on repeat. But as soon as you can acknowledge that those thoughts are just an old programming, it's just a glitch in the programming, and that you can narrate whatever you want because you're in charge. Everything can change.
Jenny Potter has written a book called Self-Sabotage No More. Stop repeating the past and start creating your future. It's a book for every one of us. She writes, the truth is that many of us have been flying on autopilot for a very long time. We're in the same patterns, same set points, same thoughts, same flight path, same destination, same unprocessed emotions. In a way, it's the same day over and over. Ever feel like you're trapped in a routine that isn't working for you? Come, listen into this conversation. Jenny, welcome to Bump in the Road. If you would, tell us your story.
Hey, Pat, thank you so much. Excited to be here. My story probably started when I was 14 years old. Everything was pretty sweet. And I went to a party, and the worst of the worst happened to me. I was drinking too much, and I couldn't keep this boy off me. And it kind of changed everything in that moment. The next Monday at school, the boy had told everyone. And I went from being like kind of a good girl to talked about and called names. And it really changed my perspective, not only of the world. I no longer felt safe in the world, but also I stopped thinking well of myself. So I started to really do that negative self talk. And I just kind of thought no one good would ever want me. And so I spent many years sabotaging my life with alcohol, with drugs, with men that weren't good for me. And about 20 years ago now, I found myself at this place where I had left a 10-year abusive relationship. And I was standing and I was looking in front of the mirror, Pat, and I knew I was meant for more. It even makes me emotional just sharing this moment right now because I literally knew I was meant for more, but I had been so cruel to myself for so many years. And I had just met this healer like the day before, and she had told me about affirmations. She had told me that to look myself in the eye in the mirror and say three things. And we had created these three affirmations together uh, after our conversation. She said she wanted me to look in the mirror and say, I'm beautiful. I love myself. I'm worthy of love. And that there I'm standing in front of this mirror. I've just left this really dark time, 10 years. I've got a sleeping bag on the floor behind me, couple of pots and pans in the kitchen, that's all, but I'm alone and I'm safe. And I'm looking in the mirror and I'm willing myself to say the words. And finally, I gathered up all the courage. But that first time, I could not even look myself in the eye. I'm worthy. I love myself. I'm beautiful, uh, worthy of love. And that started my journey really to uh, self sabotage no more, where I started taking care of myself and loving myself. And it was a long journey. And part of my mission now is to help people not take 20 years to shift, because it took me a lot of years of affirmations and personal growth and um, choosing the wrong path. It wasn't just one day in front of the mirror and then everything was everything was good again. So that's really the beginning of my story. And then the last couple decades, I've been growing and writing and coaching and counseling and making my way to a different life in a different place.
One of the things you bring up that I think is really important is that these things usually unfold over decades. People think there's like a real quick fix or something. You almost have to emotionally rewire your entire system
Mhm.
to get beyond these sorts of events.
Yeah, and it's beautiful language that you just used because in the last few years, I've discovered a really simple technique on how to emotionally rewire. I always explain to people that oftentimes it's our emotions that we haven't dealt with or processed, like our repressed emotions, or what I call unprocessed emotions, that are impacting and affecting how we show up on a daily basis, how we show up with our partners, with our parents, with our kids, how we show up with money, with our bosses. Everything is about the emotions that you haven't processed for most people.
Oh, I totally agree. The voices in our head can be incredibly cruel. I know for me, one of the most significant changes I found was when I could start to observe my thoughts. Because
Mhm.
when I could observe them, I had conscious choice.
Yeah. Yes. So
How do you get
that's
people to that place?
yeah. So most people don't even realize that our thoughts are a choice.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that right there, having that information, you mean I can choose my thoughts? And then the other part is that a lot of people assume that their thoughts are who they are. And that's also separate. So your thoughts are more like a narration. And we have almost autopilot narration going on from years of beating ourselves up or years of certain self-talk or years of belief. We can still hear that parent that was cruel or the teacher that was mean or the bully in the schoolyard. And so those thoughts kind of go on repeat. But as soon as you can acknowledge that those thoughts are just an old programming, it's just a glitch in the programming, and that you can narrate whatever you want because you're in charge. Everything can change.
I think it does change. I think one of the things you bring up in your book that is really important is you can change your thoughts, but you also have to address that the residue of emotional trauma that exists in your body. You have to find it and you have to deal with it.
Mhm. Yeah, so it's always a combo. The thoughts, the autopilot, the old emotions, the old trauma. Uh, some of us had serious trauma, like me referring to the rape earlier. But then there's other trauma, like you broke the lamp, or your brother broke the lamp, but you got blamed, or someone didn't believe you, or accused you of cheating, or you were cheating and you got caught, or all of these things, they pile up and then they impact us over and over and over again. And I've created a few methods on how to release that emotion so that people can be free of it. It's almost like a weight, so
Yeah.
people can be free of it and show up differently.
Let's talk about that a little bit. You call it the alarm method, and it starts with awareness.
Yeah, so the alarm method is an acronym. So alarm is A is for awareness. So the first part is just being aware of um, what you're feeling. So let's just pretend you really want to. pretend you're procrastinating about something, okay? And it could be something like, okay, tomorrow I'm going to eat well, or tomorrow I'm not going to eat any sugar, or tomorrow I'm going to go for a walk, or it could be tomorrow I'm going to start a podcast, or tomorrow I'm going to reach out to 5 people and tell them about an opportunity. So pick something you've been procrastinating about, and then ask yourself, how do I feel about it? Because if I'm procrastinating about something, I might feel anxious, but someone else might feel shame. Someone else might feel fear. And so the first step is just actually being aware. What am I feeling? This is the same if you're in the kitchen making dinner and you're irritated. Just naming it, being aware. Oh, I'm irritated, or I'm anxious. I'm anxious about doing that task. So once you're aware of how you're feeling, the next step is location. So L is for location. Where are you feeling that emotion in your body? This is actually half the battle, is just starting to connect emotion to physical body. Like where, do you feel anxiety in your tummy? Do you feel it in your chest? Where do you feel it? And what most people don't know is that emotion is a vibration. So a vibration, um, let's just say you went to step off a curb and you suddenly saw something out of the corner of your eye, and you instantly, your body vibrates at fear. So your kidneys pulse fear. Your body knows the vibration of fear. It knows what to do. It releases all these, neurotransmitters. It releases cortisol. It releases adrenaline, and you step off the curb really fast, back onto the sidewalk really quickly. And that's design. That's a survival design. Our every vibration, whether it's joy or apathy or sadness, or fear or anxiety, each of those emotions has its own vibration. So if we can recognize with awareness what we're feeling and then locate it in the body. So let's just say you've got anxiousness in your tummy. And then our next step is just to ask the question very gently. Don't do this while you're driving. When have I felt this before? Because most emotions, especially the reactionary ones, the ones where we feel triggered, often people will use that word triggered. Something your mom says triggers you, or, so that is usually from a past experience. That is what I would call an unprocessed emotion getting loud. And so when you ask that question, when have I felt this before? So let's just say you are anxious around doing your taxes and you feel it in your tummy. Okay. And so when have I felt this before is the next question. And
Every
maybe,
April 15th.
yeah. So you remember, but you might actually also, you might remember like being at the bank and them telling you, no, you can't get this mortgage, or we won't lend you this money, or, you might have some other memory that pops up, and just acknowledge it, notice it. We're going to release that emotion that was never processed in that moment when you're sitting at that car dealership and they're like, sorry, we can't approve you for that loan or whatever. Right. And so you have this memory, and like lots of people will remember stuff and dismiss it like, oh, it can't be that. And it'll be stuff like didn't make the cheerleading squad when you tried out, or something from high school, a teacher making fun of you, or not believing you that you lost your homework, something like that. And so,
These things really live deep within you. You really have to put time and effort into identifying these emotions and where they reside in your body. Are there any tricks to doing that?
I mean, it's actually kind of simple in the sense of the awareness, the location, ask the question, and then we're going to just relax that area of the body. And so, even if you have no memory, you don't know when you last felt that way, we're still going to go to the next step anyway, which really is relaxing that area of the body. So, relaxing your stomach and welcoming the feeling. Most people will resist emotions that don't feel good. We're not really taught to display our emotions from a young age. We either don't like the feeling of them and we repress them, or we're told to wipe that look off your face, or we're not allowed to say that maybe we're scared, and your mom just dismisses it or your dad dismisses it, like, don't be ridiculous, that's my friend, like, don't be scared. And so we learn at an early age, most of us, to repress or resist our emotions, and whatever we resist persists. So yeah, relax that area, welcome that emotion, and then you can use my unpacking method, which is literally just like wiping spider webs off your arms. So just shoulder to wrist, each arm a few times, with the intention that you're clearing out anxiety, clearing out anxiety, clearing out anxiety. And then the last step of the alarm method. So it's awareness, location, ask the question, release, and the last one is mantra. And so you're going to pack in with the same motion, if you like, with intention, packing in peace, packing in peace, packing in peace, or maybe confidence or motivation, whatever it is that you want to experience. And so that's the alarm method. It's really simple. The physical movements really work and help. Most people have around 250 unprocessed emotions, and I've seen up to 2,000, and as low as five. So you don't have to. Most people will say to me, "Oh, I bet you I have thousands," and they just have a few hundred. But yeah, in
How
general.
how do you define those 200?
Well, so I use muscle testing, and I do describe it in the book. I do share in the book how to, identify how many unprocessed emotions you have. And then you can use a chart to, again, muscle test it. Muscle testing, if you can do it, is a really simple way to identify and release emotions. But you can also do it with the alarm method, and that's why I teach the alarm method, is because anyone can use the alarm method anytime, anywhere. Yeah. So
With 250 some odd unreleased emotions, most likely, that's just stunning. I almost don't know what to make of that. What are some of the most common ones that come up?
yeah, abandonment, betrayal, shame, anger, unappreciation, like lack of appreciation, being taken for granted, lack of control. I mean, I probably could list 50 common ones because everyone, a lot of times, shame people don't like to feel, and they want to hide it. Anger, a lot of people don't like to feel, they want to hide it, or resentment.
If you identify one of these emotions and you go through this alarm method to release it, does
Mhm.
it release the emotion associated with multiple events?
Great question. So, if you have a specific emotion, let's just say we identify anger, you can discover through either asking the question or muscle testing around what age it happened. Sometimes people will just remember. So I'll say, "Oh, I just identified," because I do this with my clients. That's what we do together, is I'll identify and clear for them. And so I'll say, "Oh, anger, age 3," or abandonment, age 3. And they'll say, "Oh, that's when my dad left." So like, you don't have to know the event. You don't have to know it for us to release it. But usually people will have an idea, or it will pop up. Sometimes people worry that they're not going to remember, or they'll say, "Jenny, I don't remember my childhood at all." Like, I'm a hopeless case. And luckily for them, we don't have to remember. But sometimes the memories do pop up as we're processing.
Well, and the thing is, these memories, whether you remember them or not, will disrupt your life until you release them.
Yeah.
I mean, I always say we spend the first half of our lives getting all this crap piled upon us, and the
Hmm.
second half of our lives trying to strip it away.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
it's quite a journey. It is. I really like the fact that you mentioned that it can take decades for all this to evolve, but by going directly to the emotion, you're really expediting that type of time frame.
That's what I love the most about this work, is that, and I have done a lot of work for decades. And when I discovered this tool, it was like I just catapulted myself into a new level, and I get to do that with clients. And if you read the book, I have lots of people who just read the book, and then they message me like, "Oh, I released this today," or "I released that," and I feel so much lighter. I have people who've just lost 20 pounds after just doing the emotion release work because they're just not triggered anymore, or they just it's just so cool. It's really cool work. It's very fast. My background's in counseling, Pat. So I've worked lots of different methods along the way. And this is by far the most efficient, quickest transformational tool that I've ever used.
Have you ever encountered tapping or emotional freedom techniques? And what do you think of those?
I love tapping. There is a book called The Alignment Effect. There's this guy, Tyler Watson. I actually did his coaching program just last year because he talks about how, and I always clear the emotional body first, but this is where we go if something is kind of sticky or tough. So the body actually gets addicted, Pat, to feeling a certain way.
Mhm.
So sometimes people will have a recurring thought or speak something out over and over and over again because their body's addicted to that release of whatever neurotransmitter is being released when you have the negative thought. And so our bodies can actually be addicted to feeling broke or feeling sad or feeling angry. And so the body's always looking for ways to feel broke or feel sad or feel angry. And so if you see people who are constantly recreating, like that their life is so unfair or victim, or, I mean, you could really use any theme. The body gets addicted to feeling that way. And you can actually use some tapping. You can use EFT. Tyler Watson teaches a slightly different method with tapping and breathing and panting. That's kind of cool. But it also very effective when it comes to changing patterns.
Well, what's the old saying? Neurons that fire together fire together, wire
Well,
together. Or
totally,
do I have
that's
it backwards? But I
yeah.
mean, the point is, these become neural pathways that are established,
Mhm.
and they're flexible. You can change them, but you have to change them consciously.
Yes. Yeah. So I always say it's like you have these highways, and I can see that highway behind you. But we have these like highways to thoughts, to certain destinations. So destination broke. So the person who has that highway of I'm always broke. Every time they get a bill, they think, oh, I don't think I could pay this, or what if I can't pay this? Oh, something always breaks down when I come into money. Like people have these thoughts, and they have these thought highways. They have these neural pathways, and so I always say you got to pull the car over, get out a machete, go to the forest, and make a new pathway. And that new pathway is with affirmation, is with speaking into your life what you do want, is taking control of those thoughts that kind of you're letting drive the bus, and you don't have to, but you have to choose. So
Does clearing some of this out open up your intuition?
yes, absolutely. Opens up creativity. You'll feel lighter, sleep better, uh, opens up abundance. I mean, it's kind of health. I have worked with people that had tinnitus, and we cleared 20 emotions from their ears and no more tinnitus. We've worked on like all kinds of back pain, weird pains, migraines. For me, I when I started doing this work, I stopped having migraines, and I had them every month for 10 years. I probably lost 3 to 5 days a month for 10 years to migraines. And then all of a sudden, within one session, I never had another migraine.
It's so interesting. I talk to a lot of people about healing, emotional healing,
Mhm.
and I think the thing that comes across so strongly for me is that there's both a physical and a mental emotional component
Mhm.
to this, and you have to address both of them. Whereas
Mhm.
if you look at typical or traditional psychotherapy, It's if it's talk therapy, they get down, hopefully down to the emotional aspect, but that doesn't address the physical piece.
Well, and the interesting thing about talk therapy is if you're not someone who processes that way, it's
Yeah.
actually almost exacerbating or like building that neural pathway more, right? Let's talk about your problems for an hour. Talk about making the highway like more, not that there isn't benefit to talk therapy, but sometimes that rumination is the very thing that we're trying to get away from. And so if you can tap your body or release vibration or emotion, you can see big shifts. So people will say to me, well, I've been in therapy for years. I'm like, well, you might want to work with a different therapist, not because that therapist isn't good, but just their method is not a fit for you and how you process.
And how do people process things? I mean, you process by doing, by thinking, what else? Listening?
Tapping, speaking out. Some people never speak out what they don't want. Lots of people speak out what they don't want all the time, and that's a different thing. But sometimes people will repress, like speaking out what they're afraid of, um, releasing the emotion, identifying the addictions and the allergies. Some people are like, I'll use broke as another, same example, but so addicted to feeling broke, allergic to feeling abundant. You see this when you go out for lunch with a friend and you offer to pay and they're like, no, 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 I've got it, I've got it. Like they can't receive. It's an addiction. It's an allergic response to receiving. So, sometimes you have that, I don't know, person in your life who just, you can't buy them a gift without them almost feeling bad or they don't want it or you shouldn't have. Um, so there's all of these dynamics that we get to change if we choose.
And the energy of that not receiving
Hmm.
is a terrible energy.
Well, it doesn't feel good for anyone. When you give
Yeah.
to people, it feels good if they receive it and they're like, "Thank you so much." Same with compliments. When you tell someone something nice and they say, "No, no, 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 no," or whatever, and then it just doesn't feel good.
Now, compliments are one of my pet peeves. I love compliments. And actually, when I meet people, I find something I like about them.
Hmm.
And I find maybe it's a bracelet they have on. Maybe
Hmm.
it's an idea, whatever it is. I think compliments need to be genuine.
Hmm.
But I I think that complimenting people is something we need to re-inject into this society. It's pretty rare, actually.
Yeah, compliments, like authentically praising
Yeah.
people, and also praising ourselves. Like I mean, that's another book. But that whole celebrating yourself and loving yourself. I don't know if you've read The High Five Habit by
No, I
Mel
haven't.
Robbins. It's a good one. She does drop a couple F bombs in there, but they're well placed. But she talks about how when you high five yourself in the mirror, it actually releases good feeling like serotonin, dopamine, because our body knows high five as something good has happened. So if you could just work on high fiving yourself, um, it's amazing. I mean, that alone will change someone's life as well. Just praising yourself, like good job. I started doing it with the laundry, Pat.
I do.
Every t-shirt I put away, I'd be like, because I hated doing the laundry, and I was like, how do I reframe this? How do I change this up? And so I started to do this like, yes, I'm amazing. Every shirt, every pair of socks, I would just, yes, I'm amazing. And by the end of doing that, I'd say over 2 weeks I did that for, I started looking forward to the laundry because your brain likes to celebrate. It likes to feel good. The body likes to feel good. So anything you don't like doing, start celebrating it and see how much it changes.
Actually, I think that's very true. And do you think there's a correlation with age and loving yourself?
Oh, that's a great question. I'm sure there is. I don't really know the true answer, but my guess would be for the people who work on themselves and do personal growth, they probably learn to love themselves more as time passes. Um, but most people get into those thought highways, Pat, And you spend your life telling yourself how ugly you are, or unworthy you are, or fat you are, or mean you are, or dirty you are, or sad you are, or broke you are. um, that's a that's a pretty solid highway, and we can change our highways like at any time, any age. You can change the highways. You just stop using them, and it's called, like, I can't remember, something synapse.
Neuroplasticity.
Yeah. So
Oh, no, I
you make new highways, but then the old ones grow over too. There's something, it's called, like, I don't know. I want to say like collapses synapses or something, but I'd be making that up. But yeah, things like it will grow over. The highway
yeah.
will grow over. Yeah.
No, I think this idea of neuroplasticity is very real. I mean, I'm a walking testament to it in
Mm.
that I used to be very left-brained and linear. Nothing would phase me. I went through 6 years of on again, off again chemo treatment with
Mm.
cancer, with lymphoma, and afterwards, I couldn't even enter a 4-digit PIN in Costco. I broke down sobbing one day.
Oh.
And it got better over time, but I've never regained that linear left brain processing that
Mhm.
was so innate to me. But what
Mhm.
happened instead, which has led to actually a much more interesting life, is that my right brain really stepped in and started to grow, and my brain abilities really took over. Now,
Wow.
I can certainly use both, don't get me wrong, but doing something very linear, step by step detail is very hard for me. And it's been very interesting to see how differently I've learned to approach things and do things. Your right brain is much more emotionally based, spiritually based. And I have found that in our world, we celebrate left brain achievement.
Mm.
And I really think we need to start introducing more right brain abilities too, because what you want is a balance of the two.
Mhm. I totally agree. Yeah, and a lot of people just kind of squish the creative side early,
Yeah.
you know. Yeah, so it's beautiful when people start stepping fully into loving themselves and celebrating themselves and releasing that emotion that has been holding them back. It's kind of like everyone's going through life, but they're trying to run chest deep in water with weights around their ankles. And if you can release those emotions and addictions and allergies to feeling certain ways, um, you just move right up onto the beach and up onto the sidewalk, and then you can choose to do stuff and just do it versus fighting yourself.
Yeah. I think of it also as becoming comfortable with joy,
Mm-hmm.
which
Yeah.
is an emotion that is incredibly powerful. It comes from within. But I think it's one that we often bypass day to day.
Hmm. I agree. I agree. Some people sabotage when they experience joy, when they experience success. They'll go right in. I experienced it myself. I won a big award. And up until that day, I mean, I worked really hard for the award every single day. I showed up, I was consistent, I worked hard, I did stuff that was uncomfortable, I stepped out of the comfort zone all day long, and I won this award. And after the award, this woman came up and she hugged me, and she was someone I looked up to as a mentor. And she hugged me and she whispered in my ear, great job, congratulations. And then she said, so and so is in her room crying right now because she wanted to win the award.
Oh, what a terrible thing to say.
And I, that moment, I didn't realize till later, like much later, but that moment, I just, when I win, people get hurt was my old belief that suddenly just lit up large. And the next day, I didn't run. Like I didn't work towards my goal. I stopped showing up on Facebook. I stopped doing videos. I stopped doing all the things that had led to my success. And I couldn't figure it out. And I thought, oh, it's just because I won the award. I have nothing to run for. But it wasn't that at all. It was just I'd lit up this old belief. And yeah, anyway, so sometimes people, when people succeed or hit a certain level, there's like this knee jerk response like, oh, someone like me can't succeed or can't win an award or can't hit this level, or and they'll sabotage. So yeah.
For people who are recognizing their behavior in all that you're saying,
Hmm.
What three pieces of advice would you give them?
I would say awareness is the very first piece for everybody, no matter what. Awareness around what's the stuff you're doing you don't want to do, what's the stuff you've been saying you want to do and you're not doing, and then how are you feeling? I mean, awareness is number one, and then the next part is kind of rewiring those letting the old highways that aren't serving you, letting those kind of grow over and creating new highways, new thought highways, being in charge of your thinking, and not just like that positive thinking everything's going to be okay, but just really, well, what do I want to think? Recently I've been using with my clients, I'll ask them, what's a negative thought? Like what's the color of your negative thinking? And let's just say they say brown. And then I'll say, okay, what's the color of positive thinking, like feel good thinking? And they might say gold. And so I'll say, okay, well, when you have a thought that doesn't feel good, I just want you to observe it and say, that was a brown thought. What's a gold thought? And so imagine that you're painting your home either all brown or all gold. And so sometimes we're painting with brown, then we're painting with gold. We're painting with brown, we're painting with gold. We want to get to the point where we're always painting with gold and creating those new highways.